angled psychological empathy is forming your own construct for asking yourself how to look at the world. An artistic apathy and empathy sort of correlates in a process where your logic is not really intuitive to sadist narcissistic people. So let me explain something to you. Okay, during World War II, the Germans sent over a bunch of I don't like to use words like Jews, right? Because that's not even a thing. It's just it's an ugly term that ugly people use. The Jew, right? Like Jews aren't real. What Jews are basically they were a bunch of these inbred Slavic people um, who were passing through into cities that were mostly occupied by the German oligarchy, the Reich. Now, the Reich was extremely intelligent, and they would go and find the most ancestrally inbred people, physically inbred people, who were causing a lot of criminal activities, rapes, murders, poisoning people with heroin, but not really. It was opium back then. Um, a lot of times, this opium would be already burned down, which is very poisonous to the bloodstream when you reuse an opiate like that. Um, its biological effect on the brainstem is that it causes your brain to become extremely euphoric. But once you are cut off from that substance, then you are basically bound to become very panic prone and rage prone. Now, the life expectancy of people who are incestual through continuous inbreeding is very low because they have a very low intuition quotient, which means that they can't even compute empathy for people. They have another substance too, okay, called Molly. Molly is derived from flour, okay. It's basically Hydra mortificillin. Okay, it's basically a hydrated form of um, of this little beautiful flower. Okay, that when you ingest it, okay, you can't eat it. You have to boil the leaves down, and you have to make the leaves into a crystalline powder form. Okay, and then you can basically inhale that. Okay, what this does to people is it makes them extremely euphoric. Okay, euphoric. But the thing is, if you have an ancestral genealogy, your brain stem, your is not going to link or correlate with a logical source of meditation. So a lot of times, what they were doing over in Eastern Europe is they were taking high amounts of Molly and high amounts of opium, and they were crossbreeding with people. These two very ancestrally enraged people. There was the Slovenians, and then there was the Bosnians. Okay, and what happened basically is they started overpiling into the landmass into Serbia and also in Auschwitz and also in Austria. They started linking sort of these sources of power and control because they were so impoverished and so intuitively narcissistic. They had this idea that the oligarchies, the governments, had to protect them no matter what. And the oligarchies are forms of government that are only supposed to be occupied by very wealthy intellects. The intellects started saying, okay, you are all inbred and you're all hell ugly. Your faces look ugly. You're not supposed to be on this planet. I know why you're coming over to our properties and bugging us for food and bugging us for rations. Go get your own rations. We have this because we are intellectual and we are rich. You have that because you are inbred and poor. So go shoo over there, okay? So they basically idolized this idea that they had a right to take the wealthy people's stables, okay, and then abuse their power. The reason why World War II ended is because the Russian government found out that the oligarchy in Germany, okay, not the Reich, it's not the Reich, it's the German government, was performing experiments on young infants, okay? I'm not going to get into these surgeries, okay, because the topic's very stable to being very horrific, and I don't really like to scare people much. What they did was they found out that the government in Germany was performing these very cruel experiments on these Jewish people or people who were ancestrally inbred. Um, and they were trying to basically make it to where they could reverse the side effects of ancestral genealogy and the effects it has on the brain. Um, they were giving them a new substance that's derived from cocaine, but the cocaine was often mixed with stuff that was very poor. It was mixed with opium. It was mixed with molly. Sometimes it was mixed with ayahuasca. It was mixed with a substance called it's called hydrocortisone, which is not molly. That is actually a derivative of an opiate plant, and that plant right there has a very highly negative effect on the brainstem for people who have ancestral genealogy. Basically, what it does is it makes your brain intuitively enraged, and it's you can notice in a way they behave, like how they're driven, like they're like when they were driving a car or like a wagon. What they would do is they would just run right over you without even thinking about it. They would just be like, it gives you confidence, but it's not confidence. It's like a confidence that breaks your formulated sort of empathy for people around you. So the justice warriors are not the Jewish people or they're called Hebrews, which they're not really anything. They're just people who had their genitals mutilated, and they were given surgeries to basically sort of cut off a psychotic break in their brain. the Germans did this to them because they felt like they were being like too psychotic, and they say, well, if we take that off, then does that make you more like empathetic towards those people right there? And the truth is, it doesn't. I don't know what they call them. Are they called Hyperions? Maybe it's internally driven, psychotically impressed idiots who want to hurt you for being innocent. When you lose that control over your testosterone, your body produces estrogen, and it's a logical and a natural in that body sense. They tend to get really scary at you. They go like, "Hey, my name's Officer Hernandez. You gonna listen to me right now?" But like, I don't have to listen to you at all, actually, asshole. Like, get off my fucking planet, dude. Now. Oh, and that thing over there, the one that has a breast, the one that looks like it has like a woman's body. That's not a woman, dude. I already know everything. Like what you thought I was gonna dish out like psycho analytical pedophilic like rent to these people? Yes, Fabio, if that's your name. I don't care. I'm gonna take all of you to the grave and explain your whole like psycho analytical holy shit, we're all crazy like Cole, which is where you like drift over me, right? And you try to get me to do stuff. So Interpol operates a system now, okay, where basically they protect people who have gone through experimentations, okay. They expect people around the say California society to bake cakes and to give peace to people who are very secluded and narcissistic, but not to the cannibals. No, the ones who eat the human meat. During the Bosnian upheaval, where Russia was fighting with Ukraine over staples, and then Serbia was fighting Bosnia and a little bit over this sort of like upheaval of narcissistically driven like autistic Jews like running up into their buildings and like going like, hey, you want some of this? And the Christian white people with their pretty daughters were like, oh no, I'm gonna leave right now. Yeah, because I'm a Christian. I don't want that stuff around my daughter. And then the daughters were like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I just cook and I just bake like brownies and I just drink coffee and like I don't do any drugs. And then occasionally they're like, well, go on, and do some good stuff. And maybe one day we'll be like the heroes of Earth. And then I swoop down with these angel wings right on my back, and I go, "Hi, um, I don't want your cannibals or your fucking psycho analytical fruitcake Christians, because in my country, or in the one that I was brought over, they are not cool people. We have a pharmaceutical representative company. Basically, it has to do with like this thing where it creates an analytical psychopathy that only caters to people who are rich. It does not help the troubled people, and it doesn't help the people who are ancestral. It doesn't help the people who are highly erratic because their brains can't handle certain like medications. A lot of times because of prescription prices and methodical planning to screw over certain people, the FBI did not plan to end the Africans' lives. It was a pharmaceutical representative run by a German government. That's exactly who came over here. A bunch of Russians, a bunch of Germans, a bunch of Slavic serial killers, and a bunch of inbred, incestually insane Jews. Right? Um, they do belong somewhere. I don't know, but they don't belong in my like eyesight, telling me how to do my own business. Okay, Holy Holy Arc is a system in your brain that's controlled by a methodical plan. Okay, the methodical plan is to create a society where people are kind to each other, but not really. The truth is to create a society where you all get the fuck off the planet. I'm not peace. I'm like literally like um tedious with like analytical sadism. What you need to do, sweethearts, is you need to go away. It's true. I was raped, and it was not by um uh really any um like analytical person. I definitely don't think that these people should die. I mean, I don't. I just don't want you bringing them over here and constantly breaking like molds. And you're making our cities decrepit, nasty. You're diluting the people of America, and you're making them into these like scummy sadists. They operate a program in the criminal justice system where they auction off people who are the most vile like rapists, and they give them up to these like really big serial killers, and those the serial killers full of a bunch of I don't like using words like dope. They put it's called morphicillin, morphidone, methadone, and also hydrochloride in their drug right of choice. Okay, and these people get off on this drug. It's a derivative of it's hard to pronounce. It's pentamicillin. Okay, it's basically very cruel because when you use it, you feel good for like maybe 10 minutes. Okay, and then it keeps wearing off. Every time you have to take more and 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 more. Okay, And what they do is they put these really trashy people, right, who are high on a bunch of heroin, okay, with these really enraged, psychotic, incestually inbred, sort of like German slash like Mexican Haitian, like Polynesian, like North Dakotan white trash, like psycho fruity pebbles, and they bash their heads in, right. They bash the heroin addicts' heads and the ones that committed violent crimes. Okay, and then they rape them. Okay, and then they take their brain and they make it into a psycho fucking fruity pebble brain. Okay, or not, what, not really. It's not one. It's not the fruity pebbles that are like colorful. It's more like black fruit pebbles. Like, imagine fruit pebbles are like coal flavored and like they have like a little bit of blood in them. So they do this, and they did this to this guy who came over here on a cargo ship. And basically now he is a fucking cannibal, and he's a creep. And basically he doesn't have right to live. And I don't know what you want. Like, you want me to say something nice? Um, I don't care about a family anymore. Okay, I care about like looking at you just saying shit that's like nice. Yeah, I'm just gonna say stuff that's really fucking nice to you. Okay, so you get the fucking point. What if I told you I hear voices and I do like recordings and stuff from my friend? Just remember that people are high on PCP. It's called phenylicide. Um, uh, are extremely cautious if they have a very kind brainstem. If they use it correctly. If they overdose on it, basically what happens is they become more intuitively intelligent and more artistic. This guy I've talked about with Fruity Brain is somebody who lives in Oakland. He drives a big white truck, and I think what he does is he grabs parts up, right? I don't think they're car parts, but I think some of the cops might actually be into what he's into. Peace is about killing people that are that gross and killing them off, taking them off the planet. Kill all the cannibals, please, or kill like the ones that, I don't know, do whatever you want.